once robbed my whole gym. The whole gym.
Like
70 kids without a gun. Like, yo, everybody give me your coats, give me your Walkmans. I couldn't even carry it. Some of the guys I robbed had to help me carry the stuff with them.
Here's the problem with legends. The better the story, the harder it is to kill, even when the facts don't line up. Fat Joe built a career on cinematic tales. But lately, the internet's been asking a touchy question. Are we watching an elite storyteller or a master of revision? Joe once claimed he walked into his high school gym and hit the whole room. Around 70 kids, no weapon, just presence. So much stuff piled up that, according to him, some of the same kids he was relieving had to help carry it out. On video, he tells it like a neighborhood epic. Quick, bold, effortless. But that's exactly why people froze the frame. A packed gym isn't a back alley. Teachers, whistles, chaos, someone notices. And 70 teens handing over Walkmans without a single scuffle? That sounds less like Tuesday in the Bronx and more like a tall tale told over late-night pizza.
Long ago, Fat Joe came out and said he lied in 95% of his rhymes. What did you think of that?
He told the truth for the first time, that he's a liar. That you can't believe nothing that comes out of his mouth. He's a liar.
Still, the story does its job. It paints Joe as larger than life, and most viewers don't pause to do the math. But then Joe said something on TV that changed how people hear every one of his stories. On national TV, Joe said the quiet part out loud. He's lied in almost 95% of his songs. Not as a confession, more like a reminder that rap is storytelling. Bars are composites, symbols. The point is the picture, not the paperwork. That matters because hip-hop has always stretched reality to hit a feeling. Lines about cars, corners, or chaos aren't court records. They're shorthand for pressure, status, fear, and power. Artists borrow, blend, and exaggerate to make the moment land. When you hear it that way, the claim isn't shocking, it's craft. But here's where the friction starts, when the same larger-than-life energy jumps from the booth to the interview chair. Fans don't always switch modes. If the persona bleeds into the story, people treat the story like evidence. And if numbers change or details float, trust slips. You start asking, is this memory or myth doing what myth does?
Once robbed my whole gym. The whole gym.
Like
70 kids without a gun. Like, yo, everybody give me your coats, give me your walk.
So the smarter play is to listen with two ears. One for the art, one for the archive. What was documented then? Who else was present? Do timelines line up? If the answers are fuzzy, keep the tale in the good story, unproven folder. And that tension shows up fast when Joe brings Tupac into the narrative. Joe's version plays like a movie. He says a spicy radio moment during the East versus West tension rippled inside, and Pac called from prison asking him to cool things down with certain people. Joe claims he leaned on his network, passed the word, and the pressure eased. Clean, quick, heroic. But on-camera pushback says otherwise. Pac's family has argued he didn't need that kind of lifeline, that he was respected and surrounded by heavy hitters from day one. They say any move to isolate him was about the prison keeping a lid on chaos, not about Pac being vulnerable or pleading for favors. In that telling, the phone call sounds less like history and more like a story sharpened over time. There's also the memory problem. The closer you are to a storm, the easier it is to remember your role as bigger than it was. Small gestures become turning points. A single conversation turns into the call that changed everything.
And they asked me the question, yo, Joe, what you think about Tupac and all that? I said, yo, he's cool, but, you know, if they step to me, it's going to be Tupac's locked up upstate in New York. The Puerto Ricans hear that, and they're, Poppy, Tupac got beef with Fat.
It happens to everyone, especially when the stakes and the names are huge. So where do you file it? Dispute it. Treat it as one man's recollection, not a certified record. If more concrete detail shows up, dates, logs, multiple first-hand accounts, it can move categories. Until then, it lives in the gray. And if you want a perfect test case for story drift, wait till you hear about the missing Biggie album. Across interviews, Joe has said he and Big were cooking a joint project. The slippery part is the count. In one era, it's 4 songs. Later, 5. Then a claim floats about 8 to 10 records, many of them loaded with shots at Pac, before the whole thing was supposedly scrapped for being too disrespectful. That moving number makes fans squint. Memory drifts, sure, but going from a handful to almost an album changes the scale of the story. Then Biggie's circle weighs in. Lil Cease has pushed back on camera, saying he never saw or heard of a full-on Joe X Big project, and that Big wasn't greenlighting a dedicated diss run. That checks with how a lot of veterans describe Big, strategic with his pen, not eager to pour gasoline on a fire that was already burning hot. So the album starts to feel less like a finished body of work and more like a cloud of ideas. Maybe a session here, a verse there, a plan that never made it past conversation. Could there have been stray joints? Absolutely. New York in that era was constant traffic, reference hooks, scratch vocals, half-finished demos on DATs and hard drives that never saw daylight. Plenty of "we should do a tape" conversations died on studio couches. But if there really were 8 to 10 keepers, the industry logic is tough to ignore.
I know he got strength with Puerto Ricans, his people. But as far as Tupac being in prison, having to call Joe to keep the Puerto Ricans off his back because they think that he got beef with Joe in the street or some, I don't know about that.
Unreleased Biggie music doesn't just sit forever. Labels love vault drops. Estates clear what they can. Leaks happen. For something that big to vanish completely, you'd expect a stronger reason than too disrespectful, or at least more than one person vouching for it. So the fairest bin is this: possible sessions, disputed album. Treat it like smoke without a confirmed fire. Talk that grew over time, not a lost classic gathering dust in a locked room. And if the music side is foggy, the money side has actual paperwork, enter the Big Pun estate battle. This is where feelings run hottest. After Big Pun passed, his widow took Joe and a publisher to civil court over unpaid royalties. That part isn't rumor, it's on the record. The case didn't go to trial. It settled out of court in 2016, and the dollar amount wasn't disclosed. A settlement doesn't equal a judge saying who was right. It means both sides chose certainty over a courtroom gamble. Online, the story balloons. You'll hear claims about fake statements, years of missing money, and grand conspiracies. That material travels because it's dramatic and fits a narrative: hero, villain, betrayal. But separate what's proven from what's popular. Proven. There was a lawsuit. It ended with a settlement. Popular? The louder accusations that haven't been confirmed by a court record you can actually pull. There's also a boring but important layer here. Music accounting is a maze. Advances, recoupment, publishing splits, admin deals, sample clearances. One bad spreadsheet can turn into years of confusion.
Tupac wasn't in a prison where people was going to walk all over him. That wasn't going to be the situation. He was in prison with people who were strong.
Sometimes that's malice. Sometimes it's mess. From the outside, those two can look the same until documents surface. For viewers, the smart filter is simple. When money stories hit your feed, ask for paperwork, case numbers, filings, outcomes. If the receipts stop at interviews and DMs, keep it in the alleged column. Respect the pain involved, families, legacies, real bills. But don't let emotion do the verifying. Credit is another currency in hip-hop, and Miami had its own tug-of-war. Enter Trick Daddy Pitbull and Uncle Luke. Joe once took credit for helping secure record deals for Trick Daddy and Pitbull. Miami wasn't having it. Uncle Luke, Mr. Receipts in that city, pushed back fast, reminding everyone he put both artists on wax early and moved them through his system. Then he and Joe went live and cooled things down. The vibe, respect on both sides, but history needed proper labels. This is where words matter. Discovered isn't the same as co-signed. Co-signed isn't the same as brokered a meeting. Early studio time, first singles, budgets, contracts, that's discovery and development. Putting someone on a stage, a radio show, or a feature is a cosign. Walking music to an exec is a plug. Mix them up and suddenly every helpful hand becomes the guy who made it happen. Trick Daddy added context that a lot of younger fans miss. In that era, East Coast and Southern camps weren't exactly best friends. Cross-region alley-oops were rare. That's why Luke's correction resonated. He lived the local grind. He knew who booked the sessions, who signed the checks, who fought the radio battles.
After he passed, she had hundreds of thousands of dollars. I thought I did the right thing. She spent the money unwisely, right? She comes back and says, Joe, I'm doing bad again. We give her a check out of our pockets. We say, yo, we got to take...
After the live, Joe framed his role as catalyst rather than discoverer. That's a softer, cleaner claim, and it tracks better with how careers actually unfold. Pitbull's story underscores the point. Scenes have architects. They build pipelines long before a hit breaks. When the hit finally lands, people at a distance sometimes remix the credits. Not always out of malice, memory loves the spotlight, but the paperwork tells the cleaner truth. Takeaway for viewers: when credit gets blurry, follow 3 things: timeline, contracts, first releases. If those point one way and a viral clip points another, trust the boring trail. Legends sell, ledgers settle. And speaking of trails, the next chapter hinges on paperwork. Those viral documents that tried to brand Joe forever. In 2021, so-called paperwork popped up online trying to brand Joe forever. It spread fast. Screenshots, arrows, red circles, then hit a wall. No verified case number, no credible outlet confirming the file, and Joe publicly waved it off. In short, rumors suggest, but solid proof never landed. Keep it in the unverified pile. Here's why these storms keep booming. Documents feel official even when they're blurry crops with missing headers. People see a stamp and stop asking questions, but real files come with boring details: court, docket, date, parties, disposition. If those pieces are fuzzy, you're likely looking at a copy of a claim. Another tell is the chain of custody. Who posted it first? Can anyone pull the same doc from a public database? Are there matching entries in a docket search? If the trail starts and ends on social media, treat it like a rumor with a costume. And remember, even real documents can be misread without context. A name on a page doesn't always mean what the caption says it means. Joe's response didn't add receipts, but the other side didn't either. That leaves us in the gray zone the internet hates: loud allegation, quiet evidence. Until a real file surfaces, pullable, searchable, verifiable, the fairest stance is simple: unproven. Which brings us back to the bigger question: legend versus record, and where Fat Joe's storytelling sits between the two. Some artists chase shock value in bars. Some carry it into interviews. Joe's gift is obvious. He can turn a throwaway moment into a movie scene. The question isn't whether he's entertaining, it's whether we treat every story as history. When you stack the claims next to the receipts, patterns appear. Numbers change, roles get bigger, memories get shinier, and the hard proof often lives in that smaller, less viral space. Lawsuits that settle, timelines that don't quite meet, friends who say, "That's not how I remember it." So what's your read? Mythmaker doing what storytellers do, or a narrator who sometimes stretches the canvas until the picture tears? Drop your take. If you want the next deep dive, hit like, share, and subscribe. There's more to uncover.